Hello and welcome to the Confusion Wrestling Podcast, the last bastion of independent wrestling. I'm your host, Rob Kammer, and, well, let's have an angled conversation, shall we, this week? This week, we are bringing on the show CranderQ from the Friends of the Squared Circle podcast. Cal Cranders is doing something really cool with the wrestling community. Like, I've hinted and kind of like danced around at various points about how wrestling is family, wrestling is a community, wrestling is for everyone, and CranderQ is doing, well, just that. He is building a wrestling community through Friends of the Squared Circle, bringing in fans, whether they're in the wrestling business or just fans of the business, to talk about their story, talking about what makes professional wrestling great, and like being there to, well, support wrestling and wrestling podcasts. Like that's a lot of the stuff he does. In addition to having his own show, he uses his platform to put over other wrestling podcasts, other wrestling content creators, etc., etc., etc. So we kind of talk about, where his love of wrestling comes from, but really spend a lot of time talking about the importance of building this wrestling community and the work he's done therefore. So yeah, it was a fun conversation. This is like my first full conversation with CranderQ. We've messaged each other and popped up on each other's social media throughout the last couple of years, but this is the first time we really got to sit down and kind of talk to the brass tacks about things. So it was a fun talk. I hope you guys enjoy it, and of course, as per usual, we like to give these conversations like uninterrupted, so we're just go ahead and take a brief pause for the cause, get an energy drink, get a coffee maker, any sort of thing like that, and we'll be back with CranderQ of Friends of the Squared Circle. Hey folks, the Confusion Wrestling Podcast has become a veritable hub of shopping and treats and all that sort of good stuff. Whether you need a sugar-free alternative to energy drinks in the form of Raise Energy, or maybe even, top-of-the-line ice makers, coffee machines, and other household appliances, or, well, let's go crazy, and you can even get WWE licensed apparel, all through my links section. All you got to do is wander down to the descriptor of this week's episode, check out the various links, click on them, and go shopping like you normally would. Heck, like, it's no difference. You just came in and just said Rob sent you. And that way, you can get the things you need, maybe even at a discount, and the podcast gets a kickback as well. So be sure to check out those links. Thank you very much for listening. Back to the show. And we are back, Confusion Wrestling Podcast. This week, as I said at the top of the show, very special guest. He is a friend of the Squared Circle, or actually probably the best friend of the Squared Circle. Let's be realistic about it. He is the host of Friends of the Squared Circle, CranderQ. Cranders, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Beard's looking pretty good. You said the best friend of the Squared Circle, so now my ego and beard are just going to get larger. So,
I mean, let's be real. That's what kind of wrestling is about. Either putting yourself over, putting someone else over, or getting an ego to start politicking, brother.
Yeah, if you don't think you're the best, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Right. So that's why I have the number one beard in pro wrestling podcasting, self-proclaimed, of course.
Well, and it's we'll have to mark this on some sort of calendar, because I'm not as gingery as you, but we got two ginger beardos running around for this episode as well. So
that's what's great ginger beards. Unlike Joe Monroe,
I'm losing mine, unfortunately. I'm not losing the beard, but mine's starting to go gray because I'm old now, and it's ironically going gray before my hair. The hair's just falling out. So I just
plucked them. That's a little insider trip there. So don't tell anybody.
We'll just cut this whole part off, because if this podcast is known for one thing, it's its editing.
Perfect. Great.
But wrestler, podcaster, I start off the show almost always with the same question. Where did your fandom of wrestling begin? What drew you into the wacky world of professional wrestling?
So it's kind of funny. I just happened to be outside one day, and neighborhood kids are out playing, and a kid that I have known but didn't really know him that well was like, "Hey, you want to come play Sega?" And I was like, yeah, it's the 90s, like Sega's new. Of course, I want to go play Sega. So, like, he invites me over. We're playing Sega, and he throws in one of the wrestling games. And I just was like, wow, this is like really cool. This is kind of like Mortal Kombat with all these characters. And, then I started going over there more and more. And then he pulls out like a giant box. When I say a giant box, this isn't just a little kid saying giant and he had like 7 or 8 figures. No, he had like every Hasbro, every LJN and Gloob, I swear. And I was like, oh, there's toys for this as well. And I was just like, holy cow, this is really cool that they have toys for the video game. And then it wasn't until I actually saw it on TV when I just happened to be flipping through the channels and saw like Shawn Michaels and I believe like Yokozuna. I don't know if they had a match or just those two wrestlers. And I was like, whoa, this is on TV. And then it finally dawned on me like, this is something that's actually bigger than just a video game to me. So that's how I kind of discovered it, found it. And then I didn't even know my uncles and grandpa were like into it till like I think started talking to them or telling them about it. So it was kind of weird that I just thought it was just some made up thing in a video game.
Well, in that case, you probably got lucky that you're playing a licensed game then instead of not to besmirch Saturday Night Slam Masters. Like that's actually a great game, but not licensed. No Shawn Michaels. Do you remember which game it was?
I want to say it was like Royal Rumble or the one of the other ones because he did have that WrestleMania one too with like Doink the Clown, the Yokozuna, the Undertaker, Razor Ramon, where they had those like Mortal Kombat-esque. So it's probably one of those two, Royal Rumble or that WrestleMania one, because like I just remember it having that feel of a Mortal Kombat. I just thought it was cool with Doink the Clown with the giant glove and the mist and stuff. Yep.
Yeah, the shot glove.
Yes, the shot glove. Yep.
I was jealous. I was a Nintendo household, and so like I was jealous because like some of the Sega games, like you either got a completely different game, or the rosters were ever so slightly different. Because I want to say it was Royal Rumble actually had Hulk Hogan in it, and Hulk Hogan was not in the Super Nintendo version of the game.
I guess I didn't know that. That's a cool little fun fact right there. Yeah.
Yeah, like and like they'd have like slightly different rosters because the Sega was a little bit better with the processing, they got to like sneak some more guys in. And I don't know what the Hogan issue was, if that was just some weird rights issue or whatnot.
It could be, especially with that guy, So
yeah, but yeah, that's cool. So you kind of come up like just as like the new generation was starting. So like who did you gravitate towards?
So I think like the first pay-per-view I saw was like that Hogan Sting pay-per-view at my grandpa's house. They recorded it, so I got to watch it multiple times. I remember having like the Sting and Hogan action figures that I had brought over. So I kind of gravitated towards the NWO. Like I was a WCW kid. I love the cruiserweights, Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, Psychosis, Ray, Eddie, all those guys, every time they came out with a new one, I'm like, that's another one that I like. And then Mortis, Glacier, those were those early favorites that I could really just be like, these are really cool guys. They're wearing masks. They're doing all these electrifying moves. And then I loved the Giant because, he was so big and like imposing, and then when he took on Hogan and won, I was like, oh my gosh, he beat Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? So like Big Show, he's like on my bucket list of people I want to meet in pro wrestling. So
I hear he's really a really good guy, but I've not come anywhere near him. Not that I've gone to too many like WWE shows, and Lord knows I didn't start really attending any wrestling until I was an adult. But yeah, I've never he's never been on any of the shows I went to. Though I got to see the debut of the Great Khali, Peoria, Illinois.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So there's my lame claim to fame right there. Didn't get to talk to him or anything. But his televised debut was Peoria at a SmackDown taping. But.
Okay, cool. Like Great Khali, I mean, I've heard that like he was very athletic and mobile more in Japan, and then by the time he did get to WWE, like I guess like some botched surgeries and stuff kind of slowed him down. But I remember like, who the hell is this big guy? When he had a match against the Undertaker when I was buying a bunch of DVDs when I got back into it in 2008, like who's this behemoth? You know what I mean? So
I think that's kind of it's the story of a lot of the quote unquote giants that have actual like giganticism.
mhm.
Like Kevin Nash kind of just got lucky and he's just tall, but like
Yeah,
Big Show, Khali, like they all kind of I don't want to sound like they're broken, like totally broken and worthless, but like their bodies broke down like a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
quicker.
I
Because
can
like
imagine.
even look at Big Show, the giant, he was throwing out drop kicks and
Yeah, top
yeah,
rope maneuvers, and
yeah,
like he was just trying to be one of the regular guys. Who are like, that's not how we want you to wrestle. So
yeah, but yeah, like I knew Khalid worked like not full on strong style, but yeah, it was a little bit more. We'd call it mobile in Japan as
mhm.
well, without trailing off too bad about like the depressing aspects. So like that's kind of how, unfortunately, how the human body works when
Yeah,
you got those
yep.
things going on with you. Um, but you said you just kind of implied you're a lapsed fan. Like, what brought you back in around '08?
So like I guess as everybody gets older, they realize like the mystique, or it's kind of lost its appeal. Everybody telling you it's fake. My brother, like, so me and Joe Monroe have talked about this. How like my brother ripped a head off a Vader action figure, and he like made me cry. I was so pissed. I bought it with my own money. And I started kind of like getting out of playing with the action figures as well. So like it kind of, as you're growing up and maturing, even though I'm not mature in any fashion of the word, I just got more into football and video games, and like Madden was like, the end all be all back then of the 2000s, right as I'm graduating. So like football kind of took that place, and then I just happened to move to where I live now, and I bumped into a guy at work who was actually somehow related to Bob Backlund. Like his dad is like a second cousin to Bob Backlund. So when he told me that his like dad was related to Bob Backlund, I did a little research and was like, wow, he wrestled a lot of the big names. Undertaker, beat Bret Hart, lost to Kevin Nash, back when he was Diesel and stuff. So then we just kind of started talking wrestling, and then he eventually invited me over to watch a pay per view, and that was WrestleMania 25, and Randy Orton as the Viper, and I was hooked right back in. I'm like, this is awesome, because like I had the few video games for the Xbox and stuff, but like I was like, who the hell is Batista? Who's Brock Lesnar? Like, look at these juiced up dudes, and like, oh, Randy Orton. Okay, who are these guys? But then when I saw him on that pay per view with Triple H, I was like, that's my new favorite. Yep,
Yeah.
Randy Orton is a psychopath, So that's kind of what sucked me back into it. And then the DVDs and box sets were starting to come out. And, full disclosure, I went through a breakup, and I bought like the Stone Cold Steve Austin one. Then I bought the Eddie Guerrero one, and I just made me feel like a little kid again. So I was like escaping into wrestling to help, feel that nostalgia and to be like a little kid again, to escape reality. And then I was just hooked ever since. Collected every DVD I could buy. I had a stack. I lived with a guy who made fun of me all the time for liking it. And just to fast forward on that story, he's got a beard. He wears plaid just like I do, backwards cap, glasses, watches wrestling, complains to me all the time about the storyline. So, haha, Justin, you're hooked like I am. But yeah, so just getting back into it in '08, I just dived full force, getting the DVDs as much as I could just to catch back up, and finding that evolution, pun intended, for Randy Orton, because I just thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. So
Randy Orton has been both like underrated and overrated, like almost at the
yeah,
same time. Like it's
I
kind of
I could totally see that. Yep,
it's
yep.
kind of like it's kind of amazing. He's either like reviled because he does go through phases where he's totally boring, but you just kind of forget like how good he can be
Oh
when
yeah, yep.
when he cares. But I shouldn't say I can't say anything about the DVDs because actually that's not my wrestling DVD corner over there. I got at least like two cubicles full of various DVDs hidden away, because actually about the time you're getting back into it was like the golden age of the DVDs, because Walmart was having them
Yep.
for like $5, and
Yep. Yep.
Kmart was trying to outdo them by like doing like all the wrestling DVDs were like $5. It's just I had to travel to go to Kmart, so that didn't happen as much as
Little
I'd like.
Kmart, yeah, blue light specials.
Right. And then Walmart even like got the dollar DVD sets, which are their own wonderful brand of terrible. But
Yes, I had some of those. I recently just sold them this year at vendor table because like unfortunately they just sat in totes because I moved a lot because I was constantly like unsure what I was going to be doing with my career at the time. So like I finally had them out when I got my place. I'm like, this is my bachelor pad. I'm gonna have a room dedicated to my football team. My wrestling DVDs are out. I'm gonna be single for the rest of my life. And then 5-6 months later, my wife walks into my life, and everything just went back into boxes, and it's more of a humble home than it became a bachelor pad. So I was just like, like I have never really watched these since like '08 and '09 when I would get them. It's just time to unload them. There's just too many. Plus, I have another literally 5,000 movies on top of that. Like, I swear, like I'll send you a picture off camera here of just stacks of movies I have, plus 7 binders full of movies because I love movies. But it was either the movies got to go or the wrestling has got to go. And with all the streaming and at my fingertips, I'm like, I think it's time to get rid of the wrestling DVDs. So
yeah, that's the streaming blessing and a curse, because now like and now of course now like the WWE Network is no longer a thing, and like all the things that I would have had on DVD. Okay, actually those I can still get my hands on, but like some of the lesser stuff, the older stuff they've kind of done away with, which makes me sad. That's a whole nother tirade that we don't need to get into.
And I kept all the TNA DVDs that I was accumulated from another friend of mine who also has a very great ginger beard. I kept those ones just because I want to go through TNA and kind of go through those pay-per-views in chronological order, just to kind of see what I missed, because I didn't get to watch TNA back when it was kind of solo, struggling to get by, so.
I don't think I've ever consistently watched TNA because it's always kind of like bounced around. And then actually, okay, when it was on Spike and I could have, then I got in a relationship that wrestling was not a priority. And unlike now, which my wife is awesome and feeds my wrestling addiction.
Very nice, very nice. Same with mine. She loves it. She likes going to the shows because she can have a drink and then watch me act like a complete child. And like the first time I went, I'm like, all right, I gotta act normal, like this is my girlfriend. I gotta impress her. She's like, go crazy. I want to see like you be you. And then I started heckling some of the wrestlers. And now when we go, I just like, I don't hold back. I'm like, yo, because there was a guy, he had the buns of steel. That was his like gimmick. And I was like, dude, I'll give you $5 if you let my girlfriend touch your butt. And she's like, would you shut up? I'm like, hey, you told me to be me. You told me to be me. So then I made her get a picture with him after the show. And then he has a picture kind of like Shawn Michael-esque where he's just wearing the belt in a fashionable way. And I was like, yeah, she'll take an autograph. And she'll take that picture. And my wife is like, oh, my God, what am I doing here? So, but she really likes Dan the Dad. That's one of her favorite wrestlers.
We are a Dan the Dad household.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a Darren Corbin fan here, so
I mean,
he sponsors my show. No big deal.
Oh no, that's fair then. We got to see what was billed as the funnest match ever with Dan the Dad. So that was Pro Wrestling Revolver for everyone and playing at home. It's Revolver Redacted if you have Triller TV. Funnest match ever. Tyler Breeze, Dan the Dad, and Matthew Palmer when he was still doing the Monster Hunter stuff.
Okay.
And it is worth the price of admission, just that match alone.
Yeah, she bought a mug for her, and I was like, hey, Darren, I'm really sorry. I have to apologize for Amy, and I'll have to send you the first picture that my wife got with Darren Corbin, where he's got his arm around her, and then he's flipping me off, and I'm like, so that's one of my favorite moments with Darren because, like, I got to experience that with her. And she likes to, be like everybody else and boo Darren Corbin. But what does she know about pro wrestling? Nothing. I'm the host of the podcast, so I'm getting out of control.
Right now, our household cheers Darren because we are slowly doing a chronological deep dive of Chikara.
Okay.
And Darren was part of the late early years with as the North Star Express. So she has not seen Darren be a jerk. She's only seen North Star Express Darren, who's a pretty cool guy. Darren Corbin now isn't still a pretty cool guy, but
yeah, Cannon's in that too, right? Sorry, Cannon's in that too, right? With Shakara and okay, the Fire Ants, Quackenbush.
Yeah, they do so many we don't watch wrestling every night, and they do so many events per season. Like we're only in like season 5 still out of like 2021
okay, cool.
of them. But Darren and then Eric Cannon, who's still doing rocking the trash bag thing, where everyone's calling him the Kool-Aid Man because he's just wearing red.
Oh my gosh, those pants were ridiculous. I didn't say that on camera. You can cut that part out. I'm just kidding. Cannon and I go back and forth all the time on social media. I do love Eric Cannon, but like Darren Corbin is top tier, and then everybody else, and it's like Corbin, Cannon, and then it all depends on who's wrestling who, and then you kind of find your way in there. And if you're wrestling Corbin, you automatically got to boo you. And to my buddy Bob, who just recently passed away, literally threw me on his bus. He's like, well, Cannon, he likes Corbin more, and I like you more. I'm like, would you shut up, Bob? I'm trying to get my 8x10 sign before Cannon rips it up on me out of spite, So, yeah, Cannon's a good dude, but him and I go back and forth all the time and like to play argue every time we see each other. So
that was me and JT Energy for the longest time, too. Like, we just bicker like some old married couple on Twitter.
Especially when Cannon got a haircut, I made sure to make a great little graphic that I would like to get signed of Clippers, for Eric Cannon. He didn't find it as funny as I did, but he didn't give me a high five like he promised. So this is me just taking out my, emotional stress on, Eric Cannon. So.
We all have those folks that we just use as our kicking or punching and or kicking bags. Yeah. I mean, this is an anti-One Called Manders podcast, if there was one, and so I got like no.
I love the indies. Yeah.
But as we started pulling back the curtain, let's shift to like kind of like what I shouldn't say what we're doing now. But let's switch it over to Friends of the Squared Circle. Like, what made you go from just regular fan to go like, I want to be like everybody else who may or may not live in a basement or have a hot tub full of pizza rolls and join the podcasting game?
Well, first of all, let me just put this out there. I do not live with my mother. I don't live in a basement. Me and my wife have our own apartment with 5 little animals that we truly love. But yeah, so I went and got to be on a podcast, and I thought like that was a huge deal, getting to be on a podcast with 13 Cards Subject Change, not to be confused with our other friend, CZ and Never Wrong, Cards Subject Change. But so I went over there and got to be on that, and I thought that was really cool. I'm like, this is probably something that I can do because I love to talk with people about pro wrestling. And it's usually about, what's going on and then in storyline and stuff. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to give it a crack at it because my goal, if I ever got in the wrestling business, would be a ring announcer. I don't want to be a performer or anything like that. I'm getting older, so I think ring announcing would be my thing. And I do a lot of silly voices, with my wife, and I make up silly songs. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm funny. Let me give this a shot. And I always like to be different. I always like to root for different people. So, like, we didn't really cover it, but, like, one of my favorite wrestlers is Goldust, because a lot of people probably didn't love Goldust back then because he was just so eccentric and weird. And I was like, that guy probably doesn't have a lot of fans. I'm going to be a fan of him and Mankind because they're different instead of the Rock and Stone Cold guys. So, like, those big names, they didn't really impress me, whereas the weird ones did, But back to the podcast thing, I was just like, well, what can I do to be different? Everybody does reviews. Everybody does predictions, runs down the weekly, television show. How can I be different? And I just remember that feeling of being, hey, I'm kind of like the star attraction, even though I was with 2 other people at the time, to be on this podcast. And it gave me a platform to tell my story. Why not bring other people on who can talk about their wrestling fandom? Because now if I have a pro wrestler on, say like Darren Corbin or Eric Cannon, everybody's probably already interviewed them about their career. so I just dive into like how they got there. How are they a fan? What do they love? What made them step in the ring? And then I just cut it off because again, every other podcast out there is probably going to interview them like, what's your favorite match? Who's your favorite opponent? You know, and I learned that from Honky Tonk Man. He gets the same 20 questions every time he does an appearance. And I finally had asked him a question, you know, that no one's ever asked him about. Has anybody ever gotten a tattoo of you, or has a fan come to you with a tattoo? Because I had just gotten a Gold Dust tattoo. Yes, I'm that dedicated to Dustin Rhodes. I have Dusty Rhodes tattoo as well. No neck tattoo. If you know, you know. But he thought that was really cool that I came up with a unique question because my friend, who is also a pro wrestler, Uncle Clutch, lost a match to the Honky Tonk Man and got Honky Tonk Man tattooed on his backside. It's a real thing, folks. I have the pictures to prove it and the friend to prove it. And he was so excited that I brought that up because it was a brand new question. So, you know, putting that all together, that's kind of how I came up with Friends of the Squared Circle, is the fan perspective. Like, if you were on my show, we're just going to dive into your wrestling fandom. Like, what do you love? Here's your chance to break. Here's your chance to be the celebrity. This way, you know, you can tell your story and feel like the star. And it makes it easy for me because then I don't have to research a lot of stuff. I don't have to do a lot of work because you are the topic. And who knows you better than you? You know, so that's kind of how that all kind of snowballed. And, you know, I've tried other things to, you know, switch it up a little bit, but in reality, it's mostly about people's wrestling fandom. And I'm going long-winded here, but in the name, Friends of the Squared Circle is like, I want to sit there and talk with friends about wrestling. I want to hang out with my friends and watch wrestling. And I also want them to succeed in wrestling. So you know this, and others know that I constantly promote other people on my page more than I kind of promote myself, because we all deserve a piece of the pie. And again, it may sound lazy, but then I don't have to put a lot of content out there because I'm sharing everybody else's content so that other people can see what else out there for their taste. Because wrestling is selective. Everybody has a flavor. And as you know, there's so many different podcasts out there that, you know, you could listen to 5 different podcasts on wrestling and they're all different. So.
No, and I love the fact that you brought it up that way. I don't have to, but we'll expand on it. But just the fact that your niche is different than most of the other podcasts.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody else is really doing it. They ask kind of the same questions, but you know, they're taking it a different way than I am, because I just stay in that lane of, you know, let's go through your childhood to your teenage years to your adulthood, and then, you know, say your piece to the world, you know, and then eventually we'll start talking about first wrestling usually because everybody's pretty local to me. But, you know, I just kind of like to brag. You know, I'm sure you like to brag when you're out and about, like, I met The Undertaker when I was 7 years old, you know, and it's just kind of like you get that euphoria of bragging. So, you know, I think people just love that when they come on, like, oh, I didn't sound too superficial, did you? Like, no, I loved it. Like, I thought it was pretty cool that you got to meet The Undertaker when you were 7 years old, you know? Like, I had to meet him when I was, like, almost 40, but pretty cool that you got to meet him at such a young age, you know, during his prime, you know?
I love that when I have, like, a guest that's like, oh, I talked way too much about this. I'm like, you're the guest. You're the entire, you know, purpose of this here episode. You know, let's be realistic. The best episodes of most podcasts, I mean, this one especially, because the host is a jerk, is one where I don't have to talk.
And then we do all the work.
Yeah,
lazy booking, folks.
Yeah, if you can tell a good story, and I can just sit back and just like listen. Well, one, because it's interesting, you know, and two, like, you don't have to like listen to me struggle to make questions or like bounce around and be contrived about things. And like in my case too, like, realistically speaking, I talk to people who get hit in the head for a living. Like, I learned a while ago that sometimes you got to watch the original questions, because then they're like, oh, whoopsie doodle. Like, I don't remember this specific match, nerd.
Yeah, I've had like 7,000 of them, 1,600 against just that guy that you brought up. Let me try to You know.
I remember that specific one. Though it is kind of like neat though, is because like I do watch, I watch we'll call it, like, there's a network I watch, with specifically partially, like, I'll throw Cars Up to Change under the bus, but like we've both had Jake Christ on the show, and
Okay.
it's just really interesting just to hear like the differences in the interview. One, because Jake wanted to talk about different things, but just where our fandom lied. Like theirs, like they really wanted to talk about his time in TNA, where he's a former X Division champion. And I'm sitting there going like, dude, I watched you like when we were both like 20, aging ourselves quite a bit here. Like, what was it like going through HWA as it was the end of developmental, what, or like, dude, you worked with the Clowns, you were a multi-time JCW tag team champion, like what brought you into the family, whoop whoop.
Yep.
But like it's really just kind of fascinating just to kind of see those differences and have those stories told, and hopefully like I just get to sit back and as I say after I go on a monologue how I shouldn't talk.
And the other thing too is I like to think, like I want to be respectful in this business, brother. Is that I kind of stay in my lane too, because I know what my friends are doing. Like, Joe Monroe, he's got the round table thing. They kind of dive into certain categories, whereas Indie Talk, they deal with more of what's happening in the independents as well as pushing, stories forward. So I try to make sure that I'm being respectful to those ones that I work with, because I don't want to overstep into their category. Now, I kind of do things kind of like them, but I put, like, again, the fandom perspective on it. Like, I've been, asked to give them Mount Rushmore instead of doing the Hogan, Flair, Steamboats. I was like, well, let's put a twist on this, like the fandom perspective. Like Jay Uso recently has captivated the fans. So, the way his crowd work is going, I've kind of put him out there. Becky Lynch with the Man, as well as Daniel Bryan and the Wyatts, because of those fandoms. Like I always try to think, how can I put a fandom perspective on it so that, again, I'm staying in my lane, because no one's going to want to work with me if I'm constantly doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? And, I always say everything on the internet's fake. There's not a lot of, genuinely new ideas. You just have to take something and make it your own. And I don't really go after anybody that steals anything of mine or steals questions of mine, because at the end of the day, it's just like, whatever, like it's not copyrighted by me. Go ahead and use it, so that you can get your bread on the table, because we all want to succeed in this podcasting world. So what's me starting drama over nothing for? We all want to get along. We all want to get ahead. So it's just work with your peers, showcase your peers, because just by me showcasing the last guest I had on, Taylor Cross, his wrestling school Facebook page shared my stuff. He shared my stuff. His friends shared my stuff. So it's like, okay, I built a reputation where people respect me, and they're going to share my stuff because they know I'm going to share what they shared of mine. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to share something of theirs. So a little fun tip for anybody watching, it's okay to broadcast other pages. It just shows that you're willing to work with other people and not just be so self-centered. And I feel like I have a pretty good reputation in the wrestling podcast community and podcasting, because I'm constantly trying to help others succeed and reach their goals. And I don't hold back when I find a new way to get followers. I'm constantly telling Mike D, Joe Monroe, Tell 5, here's things that I'm doing, give them a try, because it's working for me. The only thing I really gatekeep is if I have a guest on, I want them on first. And then it's like, okay, I've had you first. I'll recommend you to my friends now if you want to be on other podcasts, because I just want that exclusive, so that I don't feel like I'm copying them, even though I know it's not. But it's just subconsciously in my mind, I don't want them to think I'm stealing guests, if that makes sense.
No, that's something CZ and I joke about, since he is pulling back the curtain. The Wizard is the primary talent and mind behind Cards Up to Change. Nick Bull's amazing, but CZ's doing most of the legwork in terms of getting the guests on and all that sort of good stuff. And we talk quite a bit about our struggles, either getting people or, how this didn't turn out like we thought it would, typical office talk. And it's just, in our case, like, it's just really strange because we're both in the same like metro area. So like there's two, like in a metro area that's like maybe 500,000 people tops, like there's two wrestling podcasters running around. But this is one of the things is like, we joke with each other about like when we get people, because we have there's a batch of promotions in the area, and we definitely try not to nab those folks like the same time frame. Like obviously we are going to overlap a wee bit on things, but we try to like spread them out. And ironically, we've only had an issue once, and I mean we worked out like a baseball trade out of the deal. Like they got first dibs because they actually reached out first, but my interview was actually recorded first just because of how loose I run things, where where the guy was just like, I can do it next Saturday. Sweet. I'm not doing anything next Saturday. Let's do it. And then like CZ was like, hey, oh yeah, just FYI. Like, oh, okay. Well, how about this? You can have him first, but none of y'all get the hot tub filled with pizza rolls. He's like, that sucks. That's a hard bargain, but we got to do what's best for the podcast deal.
I bet I'm gonna call you out here. I bet he said he had the larger beard, so he had the right of way, because that's what I would do. Is pull that beard status right there and be like, yo bro, I got the bigger beard, our podcast is coming out first. I know how Chris works. No,
he usually plays the wizard card on me. He's just like, I got magic, bro.
I'll turn you into a goat.
So I had to go to wizarding school just to like defend myself, just in case he gets mad about something or tries to usurp me on the Joe Monroe show, something of the like. But like we talk shop, and like luckily, like for the most part, like our interests have been in different areas, and then like even then when we do have like repeats, like we kind of joke with each other, because they actually like, it's been a couple months, but they had Noelle Summit, the marionette, on the show, and she's just transplanted over closer to this area, and so they had her on, and I had her on last year, but they made a joke about how they're poaching my guests, and again, full disclosure, like I was there when he asked her about it, and we'd actually made some jokes and actually worked out. And we actually worked out a bit, because I'd used him for an example, critiquing a wrestling storyline like last year as well, where I was just like, curse you for stealing my fans, and tongue in cheek, he loved it, and he's like, hey, can we borrow that clip for when Noelle's on? And I'm like, what are you doing with it? And he's full disclosure, he just like tells me he's stealing my guests. Yeah, whatever, here you go. Just send it his way. But no, like as getting back closer to the topic at hand, I as you said several times, there's plenty of space going around the wrestling podcast, and like, let's be realistic, like wrestling should be for everyone, and I think by proxy, therefore, wrestling podcasts should be for everyone too. We can. Life's too short, and there's so much stuff going on. Like, we don't need to beef, and if you're going to beef, at least
and we're nobodies in a sense. Not saying that in a derogatory term. It's just like, we're not the Chris Van Vliets, we're not the Logan Paul, we're not these top podcasts. So we need to work together in order to get to those next levels. And Mike D, Chris, Joe Monroe, Indie Talk, and some other guys, I just started kind of like a group chat, like, nominate somebody in this chat that you want to like help grow, and then let's all go help them. And then we'll say you recommend someone, we'll go in there and say that you recommended us to go follow, so that it makes you look like the big shot, and then we can just give them an extra 10, 15 followers, and then it's like, oh, well, I want to continue to work with Confusion, because look what they did for me. And then you have someone in your back pocket that you can rely on to help you in the future, and then say, hey man, I'd love to come back on the podcast. And then once they grow or you grow, you just have another, card to play in a sense.
So
Like me and CZ are constantly looking and sending out invites to each other's pages because we just want to make everyone better. We don't want to just get better ourselves, but we want everyone else around us to get bigger so that when we're all at the 1,000, 2,000s, we can start going after the 4 and 5K pages. Then once we get to the 5K level, then we can start going after the 10s and the 15,000s. And then next thing you know, we're up there and we just have this little network of people that we know have our back, and we're going to continue to bring them, up with us, versus, oh, I have a podcast of 4,000 follows, but I'm only going to follow 25 people. Nah, like I ain't going to work with you because that just shows me what you are, And I see it all the time, and it just makes me laugh when they're like, hey, share my page out, give it a like, give it a follow, subscribe. And I'm like, okay, bet, here I am. And then it's like, can you do the same for me? You don't follow me back, like I did all this for you. I sent you 100 followers, and now you're just not returning the favor. So it's like, all right, well then I know not to promote you in the future. I just happened to do it for another podcast, and was like, hey, I sent it out. I actually got you like 50 likes. Can you return the favor? And then next thing you know, I went up almost 100 followers. Like, hey guys, I really appreciate that. So I'm constantly sharing their stuff now. Like, thank you, because I scratched your back, you scratched mine. For obviously the 15,000 followers page where I'm just the at the 4 now, but really appreciate it. You know what I mean? So
I mean, it's a school of fish. We gotta have a school of fish mentality.
yep.
We're as you said, we're kind of nothing. Like we are a blip in an ocean filled with other podcasters, whether it's true crime, science, news. We just chose, the coolest thing of all in the realm of professional wrestling.
Yep. It just made me think of Planet of the Apes when you said the fish mentality. When Caesar breaks the one branch and then, apes alone weak, but apes together strong, And that's what it is like, I just feel like sometimes it's just like, if you just work together and promote others, you'll see the benefit. Like I just shared Ben Bishop's reels because I think he's funny as hell on TikTok and stuff. And he actually responded back to me like, hey man, thanks for that. I was like, yeah, like, you're a bigger creator and I just appreciate what you do. Of course I'm going to share it because I think it's funny, and who knows, maybe that'll work down the line. Well, now he's probably going to get a tryout and get signed, so I won't be able to talk to him, but who knows, that could work a relationship where he thinks I think he's cool and we can help each other grow in the future, so just like if you're a pro wrestler and you're looking for bookings, I'm tagging everything in my general area that knows me so they can see your stuff. Like, oh, Cal recommended this guy. They must be pretty cool because Cal's pretty cool. So let's get that person on the card. It actually worked out for a ring announcer. Not all my work. It was mostly Rich's work and his hard work. But I'm just saying, like, he was able to get that connection with a promotion because I tagged a wrestling promotion, so.
Well, and realistically speaking, wrestling is very much not a how good you are; it's who you know at a certain level. And obviously, like, I mean, that works for a lot of fields as well. But wrestling, especially, like, it's a matter of getting the right eyes on you at the right time, and networking, being around, helping each other out, or at least being willing to assist when needed. Are good ways of getting that out. Like, I half joke about this podcast is an indie spotlight. I want to get eyes on people who, yes, is it cool to be able to say I have Crowbar on the show? Oh yeah, it's infinitely cool to say I had Crowbar on the show. But I'm just as proud as getting like a Noelle Summit who was, getting ready to move farther to the Midwest just before she hopped on, or being like, I got some more eyes on Sam Holloway, who is now under a WWE ID deal.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we could say one, whatever, but like, I helped throw, like, I like to think I helped throw some eyes on that, or vice versa, or at least vice versa, because he shares whatever he's Yeah, and he was good about sharing everything that he was
Yeah.
about this interview too. But like again, like you got to to thrive, we got we got to throw each other out there to get just because you know who's watching, who could
Mm-hmm.
see it, or just like, hey, I have a spot, I have a spot opening, like, or even like podcast. We look at Joe Monroe, does his roundtables, like, yep. Oh, so, Rob was cool and CZ recommends him. Like, I got to go on a handful of roundtables and be an utter bloody idiot, but like, the networking that through wrestling and podcasting, it's all brotherhood.
Yeah, and definitely you got to learn from it too, and that's another thing. Like I said, I've done is I constantly try to help people get to that next thing. I don't really gatekeep any of my secrets. I feel like they work. I show people kind of what I do, and as simple as just when I'll throw in a symbol like, hey, I have a YouTube channel. If you have one, throw it in the comments. I will follow it, and I will let you know that I followed it. And if I'm already following you, sometimes I won't comment, or I'll say, already got you, bud. And then, say Wrestling from the 313 goes in and follows. I'll tell that person, like, hey, Mike's coming to follow you. Please do the generosity and follow Mike back, because I know Mike's not a pretender, folks. Like, he's here to grind. Now, he's killing it in the YouTube game. But it's just like he's taking the time in to come and follow you. Show him that same respect. You know what I mean? And then, just give back what people give you. You know what I mean? Like, you'll obviously find people that you can't continue to work with because they say stupid things. And I've had to cut a few of those people out. And my philosophy is like, well, I'm probably never going to meet this person in real life, so it's pretty easy to cut that cord. And I'm not going to work with somebody like that. So sorry, bye. But, I'm willing to give everybody the benefit of the doubt until you give me a reason not to. You know what I mean? I don't know everybody's secrets. I don't know everybody's past. I'm just trying to help people succeed. And then once I find out if they're toxic, then it's like, see ya. I learned from my mistake, and then I help the next guy get to their level. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like, again, this is the ego talking. I have a very good reputation with everybody I've worked with. Some people think it's a bluff just to con, but it's just, I want to see everybody succeed. It's right in the name, Friends of the Squared Circle. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be doing it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Oh, and I obviously, like, depending on what your metric is for success, like, I mean, I think it's working. And I guess some of the names you've tossed out there is a solid group of folks. Like I'm familiar with Mike D. I don't talk to him terribly often because I'm not that cool. Okay, no, it's more like I'm not good at reaching out, or terms. It's not one of my strong suits. But like, that dude's grinding away, and obviously, like, you can grind all you want, but like sometimes you need that push, and you're there for that push. And now look at, like, he's killing it on YouTube. He's part of the Wrestling Society Network. Is actually one of their cornerstones right now.
Well, and then on 1K finally, he found that second shift. He was kind of staggering there a little bit, and then he just something little fire, and he's the next one to hit 1K. In the group. And we're all pushing for it. So. Obviously, I've been promoting this show that I have coming up, fundraiser, but it's just he's got a new gear, and he's ready. He's motivated. So, and fun fact: the first time he came on my show, I thought he was punking me because like he just had a still frame, and I didn't realize that it froze. And I was like, "Is this dude just like putting a picture up and not talking to me?" And then I finally realized that it froze on me. I had to restart his phone and all that, or get it back up and running. And I was like, oh, this guy's got a really cool voice. And then next thing you know, he's like, I want to start a podcast. I'm like, well, I'm here for you, buddy. Let's get it going. And I'm constantly making graphics. If I see an idea that I think he can use that I won't be able to use, it's like, hey, Mike, you should try this because it fits your brand better. Hey, Joe Monroe, you do the trivia and the roundtables. You should try this. I can't use the idea, but I think you would excel at it, So That's another thing I do is like, I'm not going to keep all these little things for myself. It's just, hey, Mike, this fits your brand. Joe, you know, CZ, like, here you go. You give this a shot, see if it works.
No, that's the curse of being creative. Is like we can't always execute our own
Mm-hmm.
great ideas. So
Yep.
might as well if you can't get paid for them, might as well just give them out.
Yep.
And
So
just work for everyone. But we've been going on for quite a bit. Not that I want to kick you off the show, but
I
you
would.
put out
I'm a
that.
horrible guest.
but you said you got five kids and a spouse running around too. But I definitely before I force you to actually put over the podcast directly and talk about the links and stuff. But you referenced fundraising this. Well, actually, by the time this podcast drops, it'll be the night of Friday
Yeah.
Friday the 1st. So go ahead and plug that real quick. Don't even.
Yeah.
It
So
doesn't have to be real quick. Just go ahead and plug it.
the last couple years, I have helped the United Way raise money for the community. This year, I hit my goal of over $500 cash donated, as well as a total of $1,000 with gifts and cash. And I'm very aggressive with things I do. I get very annoying. I'm sure you saw the thousands and thousands of posts, but I'm even, putting myself out there by either shaving or, wearing Crocs, for gosh sakes. But, I'm excited just to give back to any way I can. It's been a goal of mine to just, give back some way in the charity so that one day if I have real children, not just little animals, that I have a plaque in some display case that's going to collect dust because that janitor is not going to clean it. They're not going to know who the hell I am, but it'll say this guy helped raise money or did something for the community. That's my goal in life. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We got a lot of great prizes, a lot of good things we're going to raffle off. So if you see the page, you'll obviously see that it's passed, but check out all the good winners that we got. And for the podcast, go ahead and check out Friends of the Squared Circle on Facebook and YouTube. That's just where I'm putting my most effort in right now. If you find us on the other social medias, cool, awesome. We'll promote the other stuff later, but that's about it. That's CranderQ in a nutshell. Number one beard in pro wrestling podcasting, self-proclaimed, unlike the second place beard, Joe Monroe, and CZ and Tel Fives Tanner and 13 Cards Leroy. I mean, there's so much beard competition out there that they're all under a special tier. Second place.
Do you have we need to get you a belt. We need to get you a number one beard belt.
We should clip that, and someone should make that for me because I think I rightfully deserve.
There we go. Any belt makers out there?
Right.
So put all those links in the
I'll
description.
even give some beard hairs so they can sew it together.
that is the strap. Is like your beard trimmings.
That'd be amazing.
That is amazing, and maybe I'll touch on the gross side, but
even if I gotta wear it on my wrist just to start, folks, we can start small.
So it's those little Galoob like WCW belts that came with.
Yes, that would be perfect. I can wear it as a ring too. So
start small, and then like each time you do a trim, like it can grow. One of these days, It will be a full belt.
Like the Stanley Cup.
That's the OG IWGP championship used to grow because they'd throw a plaque for every winner of the belts. But that's how you end the show. We started talking about beard trimmings and turning them into belts. But CranderQ, thank you for coming on. Thank you for spreading the message of friendship. To sound sappy about it, but really just thank you for all you do for the podcasting community, and as we try to end it on what you're doing for the actual community as well.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say before we get out of here, Midwest Goodbye, you're familiar with it, is that I have met some of the coolest people in wrestling, and I have experienced a lot of great things in wrestling. Shout out to my buddy Bob, who just recently passed away. Him and I used to go to almost every wrestling show. And then just him and I talking to people, we've gotten to meet a lot of great people. And, even doing the podcast, you never know who you're going to meet. So embrace those friendships, hold those friendships dear, because you never know when they're going to be gone. So that's my, quick message of the world. Hold your friends tight, tell them you love them, take pictures, be weird, and, pick them up in the middle of the night when they're drunk, so.
The Confusion Wrestling Podcast is a weekly podcast that is written and performed by Rob Kammer and hosted by Spotify for podcasters. The background music for this section is Ruined by Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to help support, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is helpful as well, because word-of-mouth advertisement is very important for us small podcasts. My social media links can be found in the description, but Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky are at The Nova of Cass. That's TheNovaofCass, and Facebook is MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, please check out my virtual tip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova, or if you prefer more bang for your buck, go to patreon.com/Casanova, that's CASSONOVA, where for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. So join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, Chris Zach, and Elenia, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast store on Teespring. Also, be sure to check out the affiliate links in the description below. For business inquiries such as ads, sponsorships, and etc., please email rzkamer, Kamer, at comcast.net. Thank you all for listening.